Have you ever heard this story? Jesus was teaching one day when suddenly a strange and surprising moment happened. Right in the middle of a crowd, Jesus bent down and started writing on the ground. No one really knows what he wrote, but that simple act, writing on the ground, changed everything. What did Jesus write on the ground that made everyone stop, think, and quietly walk away? Today we're going to explore this mystery together. It's a moment in the Bible many people remember, but few truly understand. We will go step by step through this story, look at the scene, and try to uncover the meaning behind Jesus' mysterious writing. By the end, you'll see why this small, quiet act was one of the most powerful things Jesus did, one that silenced even the proudest religious leaders. Let's picture the scene. Jesus is in the temple in Jerusalem. The temple was the center of Jewish life, a place where people came to pray, to learn, and to hear teachers like Jesus. There's a crowd gathered, listening closely. Jesus is teaching about God's love, mercy, and truth. But the peaceful moment doesn't last long. Suddenly, a group of Pharisees and religious leaders burst in. They bring with them a woman caught in the very act of adultery. Back then, adultery was a serious crime, punishable by death. According to the law of Moses, people caught committing adultery could be stoned to death. The Pharisees didn't bring this woman to get justice. No, they had another plan. They wanted to trap Jesus. If Jesus said, "Let her go," then they could accuse him of ignoring the law. If Jesus said, "Stone her," then they could accuse him of being cruel and merciless. They wanted to see if Jesus would side with the law or with mercy. So they stood the woman right in front of Jesus, and they asked him, "Teacher, this woman was caught in the act of adultery. The law of Moses commands us to stone her. What do you say?" The crowd waited. Everyone was watching Jesus carefully. What would he say? But instead of answering right away, Jesus did something unexpected. He didn't look at the woman. He didn't shout or argue. Instead, he bent down quietly. With his finger, he began to write on the ground. No one knew what he was writing. The crowd waited in silence, confused and curious. The Pharisees grew impatient and repeated their question, but Jesus still didn't speak. What was he writing? Why was he silent? The people around him must have wondered. This moment is strange, isn't it? Why would Jesus, who always had words of wisdom, suddenly become quiet and write in the dirt? Some say it was a way to calm the crowd. Others think it was a way to make the Pharisees reflect on their own actions. But the truth is, no one knows exactly what Jesus wrote. The Bible doesn't tell us. This silence and mystery are part of what makes this story so powerful. So, what exactly did Jesus write on the ground? This question has puzzled people for hundreds of years. The Bible doesn't say. It just says he wrote something. But what? There are many theories, and each one helps us understand the story in a different way. Theory 1. Jesus wrote the sins of the Pharisees. One idea is that Jesus wrote down the sins of the Pharisees themselves. The Pharisees were known for being very strict about rules. But sometimes, they were also very proud and judgmental. They focused so much on other people's mistakes that they forgot their own faults. Maybe Jesus was writing their sins in the dirt, quietly showing them and everyone watching that none of them were perfect. He may have been reminding them that before they judged the woman, they needed to look at their own lives. Think about it. The Pharisees had many faults: pride, hypocrisy, selfishness, and sometimes cruelty. Maybe Jesus wrote these things down, reminding them silently of their own need for mercy. Theory 2. Jesus wrote the names of the accusers. Another powerful theory comes from a Bible verse in Jeremiah 7:13. It says, "Those who turn away from the Lord will be written in the earth, for they have forsaken the Lord." Some believe Jesus was writing the names of the accusers in the dirt, showing that they had turned away from God by their harshness and hypocrisy. If that's true, the Pharisees saw their names written there, and it terrified them. They knew Jesus could see their true hearts, even if no one else could. This might explain why they started leaving one by one after Jesus' famous words. Theory 3. Jesus wrote the law of Moses. Some say Jesus was writing the law itself, the commandments and rules they all followed. He could have been reminding the Pharisees of what the law really meant, that it was meant to guide people to love, mercy, and justice. By pointing to the law, Jesus showed that it was not just about punishment, but about forgiveness and mercy too. He showed them that the law calls everyone to be humble and honest about their own sins before judging others. Theory 4. Jesus' writing was a pause for self-reflection. And here's a very simple but beautiful idea. Maybe Jesus wasn't writing words or names at all. Maybe his act of writing on the ground was meant to be a pause, a quiet moment for everyone to stop and think. In the middle of a tense, angry moment, Jesus created a moment of silence. He gave the Pharisees time to reflect on their own hearts and actions. Sometimes, silence says more than words. Maybe that's why the crowd waited, confused, but also feeling something deep inside. Then, after writing quietly, Jesus stood up and said words that have echoed through history. "Let him who is without sin cast the first stone." These words were simple but powerful. They stopped the crowd. They stopped the Pharisees. No one could say a word. The silence was heavy. Then, one by one, the accusers began to leave. The oldest men left first, perhaps the most experienced in life, who understood their own mistakes best. Then the younger ones followed. They left because they knew Jesus was right. None of them were without sin. Their anger and judgment melted away when faced with truth. After the Pharisees left, only Jesus and the woman remained. Jesus looked up and asked gently, "Woman, where are your accusers? Has no one condemned you?" She answered, "No one, Lord." Then Jesus said words full of mercy and hope, "Neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more." This was not just forgiveness. It was a chance for a new beginning. Jesus didn't ignore the sin, but he offered her mercy and the strength to change. This moment shows us that Jesus calls us not to be perfect, but to live better and to grow. So what can we learn from this story today? First, it teaches us mercy over judgment. It's easy to judge others, to point fingers and say who is right or wrong. But Jesus reminds us that none of us are perfect. We all make mistakes and need forgiveness. Second, the story teaches us that true righteousness humbles itself. The Pharisees thought they were better than everyone else. But when faced with Jesus' truth, they saw their own faults and walked away quietly. Humility opens the heart to change and mercy. Third, Jesus shows us that he sees deeper than what others see. He looks beyond actions to the heart. He knows our struggles and our weaknesses. He offers forgiveness and hope. Finally, this story shows us the power of silence and wisdom in conflict. Jesus didn't rush to speak or defend himself. He used silence, writing quietly on the ground, to make people think. Sometimes we don't need to shout or argue. Sometimes, silence and calm can be the strongest message. So now, after hearing all these ideas and possibilities, what do you think Jesus wrote on the ground? Was he writing the sins of the Pharisees? Their names? The law? Or was his writing simply a powerful way to make everyone pause and reflect? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Please share them in the comments below. Let's start a conversation and explore this mystery together. If you enjoyed this video and want to uncover more amazing stories and mysteries about Jesus' teachings, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss what's coming next. Thank you so much for watching, and I can't wait to dive into more of these hidden truths with you soon. Stay blessed.